So this inquiry about the subject I resolves in this recognition that the I cannot be this. Anything I objectify is an object of my knowledge, and the physical world I objectify, and even the thoughts which occur in my mind, which I recognize, the physical world including the physical body, and within the body, the modifications, the physiological functions like hunger, thirst, etc., uneasiness and whatnot, all of them I objectify. Mental conditions I objectify. Knowledge, memories, ignorance I objectify. And therefore the I must be something which is never subject to objectification, which cannot be an object of my knowledge. The I is an object of my knowledge, then there should be another I to objectify it. Not only this, even concepts of time and space. Time and space do not objectify me. They are not aware of me. I am the one who is aware of them. From all this, it's clear that I am rather unique. The I is unique. It is singular. Singular in uniqueness. And singular also in number. Singular in its uniqueness because there is nothing like I. Everything else is unlike I. Everything else being the object of I. You are the only one who can be said as I, who can be referred as I. Nothing else in this creation can be referred by the word I. And I thought I could refer my body as I, which is not true. The body also is an object of my knowledge. It is very strange that I look upon the physical world as object of my knowledge, but I exclude the physical body, which is a part of the physical world. Your world includes my physical body. But somehow you exclude your body from the physical world, even though it is very visible to me. It is an object of my knowledge. Therefore, I objectify your body, you objectify my body. And therefore, for both of us, it is object. Therefore, the body is not I. It's very clear. Even if you objectify my mind, my thoughts, by telepathy, well, I objectify my thoughts. Not only you objectify, I objectify my own thoughts. Therefore, I objectify your thoughts, I suppose. You as well objectify your thoughts. In fact, if I have to find out whether my seeing your thoughts is proper, is right or wrong, I have to consult you. You are the one who is going to tell me whether it is correct or not. Because you objectify as well your thoughts. You are the final authority on it. Therefore, I objectify your thoughts, suppose I can. You objectify as well your thoughts. Again, it belongs to the world. I objectify time. I objectify space, and I objectify ignorance, knowledge, memories, all of them. Therefore, there is nothing like I, another I is not there. Anything you objectify is not I. That is the law. That is the rule. Anything you objectify is not I. By the very fact you objectify it. And the one who objectifies is not subject to objectification. Therefore, that which is not subject to objectification is the subject. Rupam, Drishyam, Lochanam, Drik. Tad Drishyam, Draktu Manasam. Drishyaha Dhivrittaya Sakshi. Drigeva Natu Drishyate. A form, a color is seen, the seer is the eyes. The eyes themselves are objectified, that they are short, that they are 6 by 6, they are 20 by 20, that they are blind, dull, etc. The seer is the mind. The mind itself is objectified, drishyaha dhivrittayaha. Vritti means a thought form. Drishyaha dhivrittayaha. All thought forms are subject to objectification. And the one who objectifies them is the subject. And that subject, therefore, is not subject to objectification. So that which is not subject to objectification is the subject. And anything that is subject to objectification is not the subject. And therefore there is only one I in the world, that is you. There is no other I. And if you tell me, Swami, you are standing there, you are also I am also I. There are two I's. When you say you are also I, which you are talking about? You are talking the physical body as I, which you objectify. I too objectify. I don't agree with that. The physical body I objectify, you objectify. Therefore that is not I anyway. If you say thoughts are I do objectify them. If you say ignorance is I objectify it, I know my ignorance. And if you can figure out my ignorance, I too also, I know very well my ignorance. Therefore that is not I. What else you objectify? You don't objectify beyond anything of this. And therefore all that you objectify is within the fold of time and space. There is nothing beyond that you objectify. And therefore, if there is another thing, another I is there, that another I you cannot objectify. Therefore, there is only one I, really speaking. A second I is not there. Therefore, you are the only one who is available to be referred by the word I. Everything else in this creation is an object. Even if you imagine God in a certain form, nothing wrong in worshipping Him in a certain form. And in that form you worship Him, and if you look upon that God as someone other than yourself, then definitely you objectify that Lord. Therefore you become someone who is a subject I, and God becomes an object. If God becomes an object, you know you can dismiss Him any time. Because it's an object. Any object is dismissible. You will dismiss God and survive God. Therefore you become Godder than God. Why? Because God comes and goes and you survive God. You reduce God to the level of a pot. You can dismiss a pot, out of mind, out of sight. God also goes out of sight. In fact, God should beg at your feet, come on, objectify me. And otherwise, He is not anywhere around. God becomes an object. And therefore, what I say, any concept that you have, any concept of time, concept of space, concept of anything that is in time and space, with a shape, with a form, with an attribute, all of them are concepts. All of them are even tangible objects. They are objects definite. And therefore, there is only one subject, that is you, and that is singular. Singular in uniqueness, because everything else is unlike the I. Singular in number too, because a second I you can't arrive at. The moment you think of a second I, the second I becomes this, not I. It becomes an object. Therefore, you can't arrive at second I at all. Number one. Number two, the nature of I also doesn't allow a second thing to be. I, after all, is one because of which I am aware of everything. Therefore, I am aware with reference to things that I am aware of. Minus the object I am aware of, then I don't cease to be. Suppose you see an object right now. Now, this object you see right now, and the object is removed. The object is removed. Something else you see. Let us suppose you don't see anything else. This is object. Object gone. You are not gone. Object comes. You don't come into being. The object goes. You don't go away. A thought comes. You don't come into being. A thought goes. You don't disappear. You don't cease to be. Therefore, the only thing that doesn't come into being is yourself. And everything else that comes into being. And everything else is therefore agama payinaha, anityaha. Agama payinaha means things that come, things that go. And therefore anything that appears is an appearance only with reference to your being constant. And therefore any appearance, any arrival is because of a common observer. Before the arrival, it was not there. Previously, the flower was absent in your mind. And therefore, there was absence of flower. The presence of flower is the death of the absence of flower. And therefore, unless you were there as an observer of the absence of flower, you can't mark the beginning of the flower thought. To arrive at the beginning of the flower thought, you must be there around, even before the flower thought came. Otherwise, how are you going to arrive at the beginning of anything for the matter of that? So to arrive at the beginning, you must see the absence of what has begun. The pot is created right now. How do you know? Because I knew previously this pot was not there. Therefore, you must be there before the beginning of the pot. A common observer is necessary who observes the absence of pot, the prior non-existence of pot. So the end of the prior non-existence of pot is the beginning of pot. Is it not true? The birth is an event. How do you register the event? That it is even born right now, this event is born. You can say that the event is born only when you are aware of its prior, the prior condition of the event, which was a non-existent condition. Therefore, the prior non-existence of pot comes to an end when the pot comes into existence. And the pot is dead. What happens? Another event. Death is another event. And now what's happening? Well, the posterior non-existence of pot has come into existence. Therefore, the first second of the posterior non-existence is the last second of the pot life. The first second of the pot life, the beginning of pot life, is the last second of the prior non-existence. And that naturally involves, to arrive at the beginning of a pot, I must be an observer. And to arrive at the death of pot, I must be an observer of the posterior non-existence of the pot. If I also die along with the pot, who is going to say pot is dead? Because I am also dead. But as the arrival of the pot, along with the arrival of that pot, if I am born, how can I say the pot is begun? Neither the beginning nor the end can be arrived at by anybody if there is no common observer, an observer that survives the end of pot and who lived before even the pot came into being. And therefore, that a thought occurs in my mind is an event in time. Right now the thought has come, the pot thought, the flower thought. Before it was not. Now it is. Now it is gone. What doesn't come into being is myself. And what is that self? That self is an awareful being. Aware with reference to an object I am aware of. Minus the object I am aware of, I am what? I am awareness, I have to say. I can't say I am awarer because awarer I am when there is an object for me to be aware of. Driver I am when I drive. Walker I am when I walk. Talker I am when I talk. Eater am I when I eat. Runner am I when I run. When I don't run, when I don't talk, when I don't walk, then I am not a runner. I am not a driver. I am not a walker, thank God. If I am the walker, I should be walking all my lifetime. So walking is an action which begins and ends also. Standing is an action which begins and ends. It is not an intrinsic attribute of myself. And similarly, here, so I am a driver with reference to driving. I am an awarer with reference to what I am aware of. If I have nothing to be aware of, I don't disappear, thank God. If I disappear, if there is no object to be aware of, if I disappear, then finished you are. You cannot shake off one thought. Between one thought and another thought, there must be some small gap. Otherwise, there will be a sort of a jumble inside. You can't distinguish one object from the other. To distinguish one object from the other, there must necessarily be a time gap. The mind always has one single occupation at a given time. It doesn't have too many occupations. At one time, one occupation, now one occupation, now another occupation, now another occupation, mind is the same. And therefore, between two occupations, there must be a time gap. In the time gap, there is nothing there. No object is there. But I am there very much. I am very much there. That is why I am ready for the new occupation. I am there. And what is that I? Minus occupation, minus an object, what is that I? I can't call myself an awarer, nor I can call myself as non-existent. I am an existent being, at the same time not aware of any given thing. Therefore, the I should necessarily be the content of the very awarer. The content of the awarer is what you call awareness. You make an abstract noun of it. So if I is that awareness which is when time is, it is. When time is not, is or not, it is. When the concept of time is, it is. When you remove the concept of time, it still is. Therefore, it's clear that I survive time. I survive place.